Parliament's presiding officers and Chief Justice Raymond Zondo have met to discuss his concerns over the lack of implementation of the state capture inquiry recommendations.
This is after Zondo lashed out at the legislative arm of government, which he claims has been slow to put the regulations put in place, regulations in order to prevent a repeat of the state capture years. Parliament spokesperson Moloto Motapo says an update on the outcomes of today's meeting will be announced in due course.
The parties to the meeting have decided that we must hold in abeyance any briefing regarding comprehensive briefing regarding what transpired today, other than what has been circulated to you briefly. However, as you know, the presiding officers have planned a media briefing tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock at Wartambo Airport, where everything will be disclosed, everything will be said regarding both the discussions that have taken place here, as well as the comprehensive report regarding the status of the implementation of the state capture recommendations by Parliament.
Let's stay with that story and bring in now from the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, the Executive Secretary of the organization, Lawson Naidoo. Lawson, a very good evening to you. Always good to speak to you. So this meeting then between the presiding officers of Parliament and the country's Chief Justice, was it necessary after the remarks he made last week?
Good evening, Tembekile. Thank you very much. Look, it's quite clear that the presiding officer of Parliament felt it was necessary to engage with the Chief Justice about his remarks, and it's a sign of a healthy democracy that they could have that meeting and discuss the issues openly in front of each other. And we look forward to the briefing by the presiding officers tomorrow, which will hopefully shed some light on the contents and outcome of that meeting.
And in terms of the contents and the outcomes, what would they have had to have addressed and perhaps agreed on for this to have been a fruitful engagement, because various things have come up, right? So the Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, as chairperson of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, feels that not enough has been done on the part of Parliament to ensure that a repeat of what happened then, the looting of this country, is not repeated. But he's also been criticized by people who say, in fact, he overstepped and has blurred the lines as far as a separation of powers.
Well, indeed. So perhaps let's deal with the second issue first, around the separation of powers, because that was really invoked immediately after the Chief Justice spoke last week to almost try and quieten him down and telling him that he strayed out of line and had no business in saying what he did. Well, we have to bear in mind that Raymond Zondo spent 4 years presiding over the Commission of Inquiry. He's invested a lot of time and effort into that, and was clearly frustrated at the lack of progress in implementing the recommendations that he made. Noting firstly that those recommendations are not binding, but there has been a commitment both by Parliament and by the President to implement at least some of the recommendations that he made. And the slow pace of implementation is what I think irked the Chief Justice that caused him to do so. There's no clear delineation in terms of the separation of powers. It's a dynamic, vibrant scenario which is there to ensure that power is not concentrated in any one arms of the state. And there's no suggestion in this case that the Chief Justice tried to usurp the powers of Parliament, but merely commented on Parliament's progress in this matter.
But what is interesting now, given how politicized the process it was, and how he was at the center, really, of much of that politicization of the processes by the State Capture Commission, so anything he says would be open to interpretation, whether it's fair comment or not?
Well, I think, the reports of the State Capture Commission laid bare exactly how state capture happened in South Africa, the extent to which Parliament was responsible in, turning a blind eye when allegations of corruption and state capture were brought to its attention. It folded its arms, closed its eyes, and did nothing. And that's the fundamental issue here. I don't think that's a political issue. That's an issue about a constitutional democracy. It's an issue about the rule of law, and it's an issue about accountability. So from that point of view, I think the Chief Justice was well within his rights from expressing the views that he did. What is interesting now, Tembekile, is that Parliament is now at this press conference tomorrow going to actually outline all the steps that they've taken to implement the recommendations. I think that is an acknowledgement by Parliament that they need to take the nation into their confidence, tell us exactly what has been done. We saw from the report that was tabled in Parliament in January this year what the plans were. We haven't had a detailed report, so this would be a very welcome development. And if out of the Chief Justice's remarks last week, this is what we get, an update from Parliament, and hopefully a speeding up of the process, then it will have achieved something.
I wonder, though, Lawson, if it's not a fight better left to NGOs, civil society, and perhaps even opposition political parties to take further, because Zondo chaired the commission, a report was released, handed over with the recommendations, what should be done. He's now Chief Justice of the country, and there may very well be cases that stem from the process that end up before the court. And once again, given how he himself has been drawn into the political space, unwittingly or not, best then just to limit the distractions, for want of a better word, why not just leave it to civil society and other political parties to fight this going forward?
Well, firstly, let me say that civil society is very much in the forefront of this issue of monitoring the implementation of the recommendations and seeking to bring appropriate pressure to bear both on Parliament and on the executive to implement the recommendations, insofar as permanently establishing the investigative directorate in terms of providing additional support for whistleblowers, and in relation to Parliament to ensure that that the accountability mechanisms that were found to be wanting are in fact strengthened in Parliament. So civil society is playing its role there. I think the other point, though, is, in relation to what the Chief Justice said, he spoke about, what Parliament needs to do, and, this does not impact on any of the implicated individuals who may take the report or parts of the report and review, and which may come before Chief Justice Zondo at some point. So these were comments about the systemic actions that need to be taken to strengthen institutions of governance, to prevent them from being captured in the future. So I think there's a clear distinction there, and I don't think in that sense he put himself in a potential conflict of interest.
Fair to say tonight that neither of the arms of state have done a brilliant job, shall we say, at this stage of assuring any of us that there won't ever be a repeat, and that there will be, in fact, consequences for those who actively participated in the corruption and other crimes from the state capture period, right?
Well, indeed, and I think that's the frustration that many South Africans confront at the moment. That we want to see accountability for state capture. We want the law enforcement agencies to move faster. They have started that process. There's some charges that have been laid, some cases underway. A significant amount of money has been gotten back either through various processes of the SIU and the Asset Forfeiture Unit and the like. But much more needs to be done. And I think what we want to see is a level of political urgency from the President, from the government, as well as from Parliament, to say that this is a serious issue. As we speak now, Tembekile, we hear more and more cases of corruption on a daily basis. So we know that we're not winning this battle as yet, and therefore we really must do more. And we can't afford to be, to sit back and take our own time about putting these measures in place. They're having an impact on our society. They're having an impact on our economy, the impact on socioeconomic conditions in the country. So I don't think we can take a relaxed attitude to this, and there really does need to be a greater sense of urgency from all involved in ensuring that we put in place the measures to make sure that state capture never comes back.
Lawson Naidoo, I thank you for your time tonight.